From exclusive items to portion sizes, we wanted to find out all the differences between Cadbury products in the US and the UK. This is Food Wars. In the UK, classic dairy milk chocolate comes in a bunch of sizes. The smallest one isn't sold individually, but it's one of these selection box bite-sized pieces. Then we move up to one of these little bars. These are sold mostly as a snack for children and they weigh 18 grams each. Then we have a multi-pack bar, which weighs 33.5 grams. Then we have what I would say is the standard bar, which is 45 grams. If you're feeling hungry, you can have a duo bar. As you can see by the crease in the middle, it's kind of separated into two smaller bars, and in total, it weighs 54.4 grams. In terms of standard dairy milk, you may also be able to find a 95 gram bar. We actually found a 90 gram bar of caramilk. The portion size varies slightly depending on what type of chocolate you're getting. Moving more in towards the larger sizes, we have a 110 gram bar of dairy milk. Up from that, we have a 180 gram bar. Our second biggest size is this 360 gram bar. And finally, our biggest size is this one. That's 850 grams of dairy milk.
In the US, our dairy milk bars come in one size, the 3.5 ounce or 99.2 gram bar. Now this bar right next to it, the Caramello, is actually 4 ounces or 113.4 grams. Right here in the middle, there's a fruit and nut size that's 5.4 ounces or 153 grams. I couldn't get it in time, but our, I guess, biggest size or other size is this, a bag of miniatures where it is an 8 ounce or 22 gram bag, but it's all these little guys in there. Our Cadbury bar, the 99.2 gram bar, comes in 18 squares per bar. If you divide it up, it's 6 grams per square.
For comparison, we'll take a look at our 110 gram bar of dairy milk in the UK. One of these bars has 24 individual squares. We're going to find out how much one of those weighs. So according to our slightly inaccurate analog scales, one square weighs around 6 grams, although if we divide the 110 figure by 24, we end up with around 4.5, so somewhere between there.
So, there's no difference. Good on you, Cadbury.
Here are all the Cadbury products from the UK that you won't find in the US.
And here are all the Cadbury products from the US you won't find in the UK. This is going to be an easy one for me. Now, I want to remind the audience that this is for Cadbury products produced in our respective countries. Yes, all this stuff is available on Amazon, we know.
Now, obviously we have a ton of exclusive products here in the UK, so we're going to break them down into categories. We'll start with standard dairy milk bars, but with different flavorings. We're going to start off with a bang here with what's possibly my favorite, just standard dairy milk bar, which is Cadbury Whole Nut. It's basically fruit and nut, but with none of that gross fruit in there. It's just the nuts. Fruit and nut, whole nut. Now, depending on what time of year you're looking for your Cadbury in the supermarket, you might be able to find orange dairy milk, but because we're in the build-up to the festive season, we got winter orange crisp instead. Chocolate and orange is kind of a beloved flavor combination here in the UK. I think a lot of people will think of Terry's chocolate oranges, but Cadbury's are getting in on the act too. Next up, we have Cadbury Dairy Milk Oreo. You might see a few of these as we go through. They seem to have some kind of partnership going on with Oreo, because there's actually quite a few Dairy Milk X Oreo products. I'll open this one up because it's actually quite cool what they've done, to be fair. From the outside, it looks just like a standard piece of dairy milk, but if you see, they've actually filled it with Oreo cream. But they also put little pieces of the biscuit in, so you get these like crunchy bits as well. If the Cadbury Dairy Milk Oreo somehow isn't sweet enough for you, you can also get a white chocolate Oreo bar. We're sticking with the classics here, and we're moving on to Dairy Milk Caramel. Now, I know I said that this might have been too sweet for me, but I actually do really like the caramel bars. So what you get is dairy milk chocolate, but then you have this quite liquidy caramel on the inside. The caramel, it is sweet, but it's not like you're just tasting sugar, you know, there is something else going on there. We did see that in the US, you guys have Caramello. Is that kind of the same thing? Joe, what do you think?
Hi, Harry, and yes, we don't have the Dairy Milk Caramel. We have the Dairy Milk Caramello. I remember Caramello for a while was a US brand. I remember the commercials. It went like, Caramello. So that's yours. Let's take a look at ours. Here's ours. It's already like kind of coming out there. It's caramel heavy, rich, I guess. Yeah, I haven't got a straight answer if Cadbury just bought Caramello in the US and repackaged it or what, but it looks like it's probably relatively the same.
Sticking with the caramel theme, we now have the new salted caramel bar. I feel like, I don't know if this is the case in the US, but there's been a real salted caramel takeover in the past couple of years, to the point where it's very hard to find unsalted caramel now. And I suppose Cadbury had to get on the trend. I really don't think I taste much, if any, difference at all between that and the regular caramel.
Since I have nothing else to do for this episode, I'm gonna go ahead and try some of this UK Cadbury I'm hearing so much about, starting with the OG Cadbury Dairy Milk Bar. Yeah. This is a much smoother, nicer, richer, creamier chocolate. I do really love this. It's fantastic. You brag a lot about your chocolate, UK, but another thing you should be bragging about is your caramel. It's also really good and way better than what we have in America. So the caramellos from earlier, I'm just not the biggest fan of those anymore. I liked them when I was a kid, but caramel in America is just too there. But yours, oh yeah. I mean, it pulls apart nicer.
Now this one got cheers of approval from the crew when I mentioned it. This is the Cadbury Dairy Milk Dime Bar. Now for those who don't know, Dime is a chocolate bar in its own right, and it's like a layer of chocolate on the outside with quite a hard layer of kind of toffee caramel on the inside. Now Dime bars themselves I think have maybe fallen out of favor a little bit in the UK. They were very popular with kind of like my granddad's generation, and I think people don't really buy them on their own anymore. However, I do say they are delicious. You can also still buy them in places like IKEA. I think they're popular kind of on continental Europe. Next up we have another new bar. It's the Cadbury White Confetti Bar. I've never seen this before I went to do the shopping for this episode, but it's white chocolate and it contains oat biscuit pieces as well as milk chocolate beans. But you do see quite a few of these biscuity pieces. Ooh. Yeah, I get a lot of the biscuit, not much of the chocolate pieces. You may also be able to find a mint dairy milk, a crunchy pieces dairy milk, and also dairy milk with 30% less sugar, but I wasn't able to track them down today. Then we have a couple of dairy milk bars with either slightly different compositions or flavors. Firstly, we have Dairy Milk Marvelous Creations. This one has jelly popping candy inside. Don't quote me on this, but I feel like back in the early 2000s in the UK, we had a Wonka series of chocolate bars, which were inspired by Willy Wonka. Now, I think that was actually a Nestle product, but they had interesting flavors. They did things like putting jelly beans and popping candy into their chocolate bars. They've disappeared, don't know what happened to them. But I feel like this is Cadbury's attempt to like get in on that, bring that back a little bit. Probably pretty well timed because, you know, the Wonka movie's out soon. It's gonna really date this video, but we love Chalamet. These are pretty good. I do think it's like an interesting textural experience when you eat one of these because it's the kind of chewiness of the jelly bean mixed in with the melty milk chocolate. Not my favorite, but hey, if you want something a little bit different, then this is for you. Then we're on to the Big Taste bars. This is the Dairy Milk Big Taste Oreo Crunch. I did mention that there was a theme of dairy milk and Oreo crossover products, and this is the next one in that line. So with the Big Taste bars, they are thicker than a standard chocolate bar would be, and because of that, they have like layers going on, basically double the height. So here is the standard Dairy Milk Oreo, and here is the Big Taste Oreo. As you can see, you get much more distinct layers on this one. I'm gonna be honest, I think I just prefer the standard one. One iconic Cadbury product is the Freddo. A Freddo is a small individually wrapped chocolate bar that's in the shape of a frog. Now you can get two versions of this. You can either get a standard one, which is just milk chocolate, or you can get a caramel Freddo. Much like a Dairy Milk caramel bar, it's a shell of milk chocolate with that kind of liquidy caramel on the inside. I love Freddos. I feel like a lot of Brits have a nostalgic attachment to them. I can't tell if they've shrunk over the years or if I've just got bigger, or possibly both. But I do feel like back in the day, when you're a little kid, these are a nice little like snack-sized treat, whereas nowadays this is like a mouthful. This is kind of tiny. They're also worth pointing out because in the UK, they've become an unlikely economic yardstick. When I was a kid, they cost just 10 pence, but the price has risen drastically over the past few years. At one point in 2017, the price rose as high as 30p for one of these, whereas I think it's now dropped back down to 25 after probably a lot of public outcry. Because of the fluctuating price, they've kind of become a measure of inflation and cost of living here in the UK. People's paychecks do not buy them as many Freddos as they used to, and that is a sad thing.
That's funny, Harry. In the US, Cadbury tried what I think are similar shenanigans by decreasing the size of the products. Back in 2007, US comedian and actor BJ Novak outed Cadbury on the Conan O'Brien show for suddenly making Cadbury eggs smaller.
In the UK, we also have a couple of plant-based chocolate options. They're made with almonds instead of dairy in order to try and replicate a milk chocolate feel, and they come in two forms, either as a classic bar or as a salted caramel. It's actually not that bad. They've done really well, I think, to replicate the texture of milk chocolate, because as it kind of claims on the packaging, smooth, I think is the word. It really is quite a smooth experience. It does kind of melt in your mouth, almost like a milk chocolate bar would. I think what's letting it down really for me is still the taste of it rather than the texture. It tastes almost more like a sort of cooking chocolate, or like, you know, when you get those really cheap chocolate chips and feels like there isn't enough cocoa or like creaminess to them.
We have these 4 exclusive bars here in the US. We got Rock the Road, which is milk chocolate with roasted almonds, marshmallows, and fudge. No, I don't like that. We have a Royal dark chocolate. I'm sure you have several dark chocolates. Ours is Royal. I'm not a big dark chocolate guy. Not as bitter as I expect from dark chocolate, so not bad, but I don't know. Again, just okay. Roasted almond. Generous with the almonds, right? It's a pretty good almond haul. Last of our exclusive flavors are Black Forest Cake, which is dark chocolate with cherry flavored fudge and cookie pieces. Oh man. Okay, so apparently in the UK you would call us a Black Forest Gâteau, which is funny because you didn't use the French words for black or forest.
Well, I'm the Black Forest in Germany, so.
Oh yeah, that's right. And the Black Forest in Germany. The EU, you guys don't know what's going on. I'm gonna be honest with you, chocolate and cherry, not my favorite combo. Oh God, ugh. This is terrible. This is the worst one. Oh, I hate this. Ugh.
Next up, we're onto buttons. Now, Cadbury buttons are just pieces of dairy milk chocolate shaped into little buttons or little discs. Buttons come in a range of sizes and flavors. So the original ones are actually tiny. I feel like they've kind of fallen out of favor, or maybe are just kind of only given to kids, but this is what, honestly, the classic button looks like. And it's these really tiny little chocolate discs. It's literally just plain dairy milk chocolate. The ones that I would more commonly go for in my adult life are the ones which are served in these big sharing bags. And they're more like this size. Would you say that's more than double the size, I would say. And then if that button size is still not big enough for you, then we have mega buttons. So we have classic, giant, and mega. Just one more note on the size of the buttons. We've observed that the classic ones on the packet are just called buttons. But what I think used to be called the giant ones are also now just called buttons, which you can see because they are still called giant buttons in the orange flavored version. You can also get buttons in a range of flavors. So here we have some mint chocolate buttons, some orange chocolate buttons. These ones are called caramel nibbles, but I always thought they were just caramel buttons because again, they're kind of the disc shape, but with a little pocket of caramel in the middle. And you can also get dark milk buttons. Now these are a Cadbury invention, which is somewhere between dark chocolate and milk chocolate, as well as caramilk buttons. And if you want just actual dark chocolate, Cadbury's calls that Bourneville, and they have giant Bourneville dark chocolate buttons. Another Cadbury product in the UK are Cadbury Fingers. Now these are a classic. I feel like these are a staple in a lot of British households. Basically what you get is a layer of biscuit along the bottom, which is then kind of just completely dunked in Cadbury milk chocolate. Can't figure out exactly what the biscuit is. I think it's kind of like shortbread. You can also get Cadbury Fingers in a range of sizes and flavors. For example, you can get these little bite-sized pouches. We have the salted caramel fingers here, but you can also find white chocolate fingers, orange chocolate fingers, mint chocolate fingers, and dark. One thing which is just launched in the UK at the time of filming is Cadbury Delights. These are a new range of products which I believe are nougat covered in chocolate. These come in the flavors of hazelnut and caramel, orange and caramel, and salted caramel.
Another exclusive we have in the US are the mini chocolate eggs, harvest eggs, but it's around the holidays right now, so we have instead mini snowballs. I feel like they're the same. These are the same, come on. Yeah, just milk chocolate with a crisp, sugary shell is this in here. Good for snacking, I think. I think these taste the best out of everything here, to be honest. I also have the cream eggs. Couldn't find them anywhere. I thought they used to be everywhere. Now they're gone. I don't know what happened to them, but you know what they look like. We have them.
Tragically, we're filming this in November, so we can't get our hands on our seasonal egg exclusives. Cadbury's is obviously known for cream eggs, but also has mini eggs, which I believe are excellent. In the UK, we can obviously get the classic cream egg, but we can also get white cream eggs and caramel eggs. We can also get classic mini eggs as well as a mini eggs bar. However, I will point out that because it's in the run-up to Christmas, we are able to get Heroes right now, which is a Cadbury selection box typically eaten around the holidays. As part of a Heroes box, you can get a little bite-sized twisted cream egg bar. I get that, like, you know, you want to create that artificial demand, but I feel like people are going to eat cream eggs year-round regardless of availability, so I feel like you should just give the people what they want. Have cream eggs year-round. Same for mini eggs. Please, I need those much more than cream eggs. Now we're on to some exclusive chocolate bars, which you'll find in the UK but not the US. Gonna go through them in like a roughly alphabetical order here, starting with the Boost bar. Now, I believe when these were first introduced, they were almost advertised as like an energy bar in chocolate form, because I think they had like mortifying levels of sugar and glucose in them. Whereas now I think they've actually dialed back on that, and it's kind of just like a chocolate bar with some biscuit and caramel in the middle.
At the Boost bar. Give me the Boost. Everyone in the UK is watching me like, this dummy's never had this before? No, I haven't. Or if I had, I don't remember it.
Now, you might remember from the buttons, but when you see dark chocolate in Cadbury's, it's going to be marketed as Bourneville. Comes in this iconic red packaging as well, compared to the usual purple colours used by Cadbury's. Fun fact, Bourneville is actually a real town which you can visit in the UK. It was created basically by Cadbury to house all of their workers, and apparently it's quite a nice place to live. I'm not sure why they've ended up using that name for their dark chocolate range, but here it is. You can get it in a few different flavours. Here, for example, I have the Old Jamaica flavour, which is a dark chocolate with rum and raisin. We also have the Bourneville Mint Crisp bar. You can also just get it in a standard plain dark chocolate one, as well as an orange bar as well. Next up, we have Caramilk. So as the name suggests, this is kind of like a caramelly milk chocolate hybrid, which Cadbury's has released over the past couple of years. What you end up with is this like slightly weird, yellowy, golden color. Kind of weird because it's got the texture of like a milk chocolate, but the flavor is much closer to like a buttery fudge. You can also get Caramilk in the form of a Caramilk Crispy bar, which is caramel chocolate with little crisped rice pieces. Speaking of crunch, next up we have a crunchy bar. These are pretty iconic. Basically what you get is a honeycomb, which is then dipped in milk chocolate to produce a crunchy bar. When I say honeycomb, obviously there's no actual beehive in here. What you do is you mix melted sugar and I believe baking soda, and it kind of like aerates and puffs up and then solidifies to leave you with what we know as kind of, I guess, like confectioner's honeycomb. Again, slightly controversial take. I don't like crunchy. I don't like the texture of the honeycomb on my teeth. It feels really weird and I don't enjoy it, but I know it's a very popular bar, so you do you, that's fine. Next up is another possible favorite of mine. It's a Curly Whirly. Now, I love these because it sounds like an American has kind of like improvised a name for a British chocolate bar. They're a little bit hard to describe. It's a combination of chocolate and toffee, but it's in this very distinctive, unique shape. I'm not really sure what the logic is behind the shape, but I'm not sure if the same distinction exists in America, but here in the UK, if we say something has toffee in it, that implies that it's going to be very chewy. Kind of similar to caramel in terms of the taste, but a lot more chewy.
Curly Whirlies, let's go. I have had these before and I do really like them. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Next up, we have some more dark milk products. Again, this sits somewhere between dark and milk chocolate on the kind of cocoa content scale. This one is flavored with some little salted caramel pieces. More of the salted caramel. Again with the salted caramel, we get it, it's fine. You might also be able to find this same bar but flavored with some hazelnut praline pieces. Next up is another classic, it's a double-decker bar. Our buses aren't the only things that are double-decker here in the UK, we also have these chocolate bars. There's like quite a lot going on in a double-decker bar. I do love them, I'm gonna be honest. But so what you get is obviously the dairy milk chocolate coating on the outside. But then on the inside, you see you have this big layer of nougat, and on the other side, you have lots of these little crispy, I think kind of like crispy rice pieces. Moving on from that, we have a flake. So I don't really understand how flakes are made, but they are quite impressive. Basically, I think what they do is they get like a kind of like waterfall of chocolate. And the way that it kind of like hits the refrigerated surface, it kind of like folds in on itself, and you get this really like layered, flaky texture. Flakes are pretty iconic. The main use of flakes, arguably in the UK, is in ice cream cones. What you will usually get is a whipped ice cream cone, Mr. Whippy, and then they just stick a flake in there as well. Flakes have also apparently been the center of some controversy this year, because due to the weird structure of them, they don't melt. Now, unlike most of the chocolate that I've been trying today, I've kind of come away with like little bits of melted chocolate on my hand, but basically due to how thin the layers of the chocolate are, when it melts, the solids and the fats don't really separate like they should do, and therefore it just can't melt. You can put one of these in like a bain-marie and it will just not melt. You can microwave one and it will just burn before it starts to melt. The fun facts don't stop there. We're rolling straight in to the Fry's chocolate cream. Woo. Now, obviously, these do not have the same packaging or branding as the rest of them, but they are indeed manufactured by Cadbury's. So these are bars of dark chocolate with a fondant cream center. They're worthy of special mention because these are some of the first ever mass-produced chocolate bars. They take their name from the Fry family, who were a Quaker family from Bristol in the UK. Now, the Frys were actually the first people to figure out how to make mass-produced chocolate bars. We're going all the way back to the 1840s here in the UK, but around that time, people only really drank chocolate. It was quite rare to get a piece of chocolate or a chocolate bar. The Frys were the first ones who figured out how to press cacao beans to separate the fats from the solids. Now, they were doing this just to try and make a drinking powder that was kind of easier to dissolve, but inadvertently figured out how to separate all the materials and then reincorporate them in order to make a shelf-stable chocolate bar. That's a taste of history right there.
This is the packaging. It's a Fry's chocolate cream. The packaging of this one is suspicious. It's like lowest effort of packaging. It's just this white text, no drop shadow, a little bit of the bar right there. No, I do not like this.
Now, while they're not technically products themselves, rather an amalgamation of products, we have some selection boxes here in the UK which are worth pointing out. Now, these will start to pop up in stores around Christmas time, which is when they're usually eaten. Now, these are what's known as a selection box. So basically you have small individual versions of quite a few of their different chocolate bars, which you can then share with the family. So the box of heroes will contain eclairs, fudge, Whisper, Dairy Milk, Crunchy Bits, Twirl, Dairy Milk Caramel, Double Decker, and the Cream Egg Twisted. We also have roses, and these aren't really based on existing brands. These are more just like classic chocolate box selections, I suppose. So we have things like the Orange Cream, the Strawberry Dream. We do actually have some mini Dairy Milk bars in here now, as well as a few other ones. I feel like in my power rankings of all the chocolate selection boxes, I don't know if the Cadbury ones win for me. I do think Celebrations might win for me, which is like the Mars brand equivalent of these ones. I'm thinking it's probably Celebrations, Heroes, Roses. And Quality Street, of course, the classics. Man, British Christmas, what a wonderful time. While we're talking about selection boxes, I should also mention the milk tray. Now these are a classic. These have been going back years and years and years. I feel like it's less of a thing now, but these were very, very popular to gift to people, whether, someone's had you around for a dinner party or it's a birthday. Give someone a milk tray. Back in like the kind of 60s or 70s, it was just the dumb thing to do. Back to the chocolate bars. This is a picnic bar. I actually don't know if I've ever had a picnic bar before, mostly because they contain raisins. It's a milk chocolate bar, but then inside, it's kind of just like a mixture of everything. You get raisins, you get peanuts, there's crispy cereal in there. I think there's caramel as well. Next up is the Cadbury Timeout Wafer. I'd say this is more of a biscuit bar than a chocolate bar, but you have layers of biscuit and chocolate, which are then obviously coated in more Cadbury Dairy Milk chocolate. Then we're on to a twirl. These are kind of similar to the flake in terms of the texture. It's kind of like flaked texture inside, but the actual individual bars are coated with chocolate.
Twirl, what is a twirl? No, I don't like this. It's just okay. I don't like the airy texture of it.
Man, these are a classic. I feel like these have almost gone extinct. This is a chomp bar. It's kind of the same as a curly whirly in that it's basically a layer of toffee covered in milk chocolate. But instead of that like weird patterning with the gaps, this is just a solid bar. I feel like these have always been served in this kind of small size bar as more of a snack maybe aimed towards kids. But I love a chomp, these are brilliant. Shh, it's a Whisper bar. I don't fully understand Whisper bars. I like them, don't get me wrong, but it just kind of like feels like you're getting less chocolate for your money than you are with some other bars. Because basically they've taken a milk chocolate bar, but they've figured out how to aerate it and kind of like put little air bubbles in. What they've really gone for is a texture where when you bite into it, it almost like melts on your tongue. We also have a Whisper Gold bar. Whisper Gold is the same aerated texture, but it has a layer of caramel running along the top. Next up, we have a Star Bar. Now, the way I see it, this is just like a better picnic bar. So a Star Bar is basically just milk chocolate on the outside, caramel and peanuts. Next up, we have the Fudge Bar. It's a layer of fudge with some Cadbury chocolate on the outside. They're still in the Heroes box, which I like, but I feel like not that many people like them anymore. And then finally, for the time being, eclairs. So the Cadbury eclair is very different to the pastry eclair. It's basically a ball of toffee with chocolate on the inside. I always like these. Also, there's always something really satisfying about the texture of toffee to me. I had braces as a little kid, and I really missed toffee when I had braces. So I'll never take toffee for granted again.
Now, Cadbury in the US is a brand that's manufactured by Hershey. So there's no sub-brands under Cadbury in the United States. However, Hershey does own about 29 brands. Here are a few that are exclusive to the US. In no particular order, first one, Milk Duds. Have been to a movie theater in the US? Recognize that sound? Some jerk sitting 2 rows behind you doesn't understand, he's making noise. You got Milk Duds. Milk Duds are like curly whirlies in button form. That's actually pretty good what I just did there. It is just caramel covered in chocolate, but it is in button form and not like drizzle form. These guaranteed stuck to your teeth. Guaranteed you're digging these out of your teeth. A Heath bar is, hang on, English toffee enrobed in rich chocolatey coating. They wrote that like they thought an American would read that and be like, this is from England. Mounds is chocolate and coconut. There it is. It's a mound. Looks a little bit like a rabbit turd. It's just a chunk of coconut covered in dark chocolate. Now, if you're looking at this and you're being like, it needs something else, Joe. Yes, it does. How about almonds? Almond Joy. The exact same thing as a Mounds, but if said rabbit ate a bunch of almonds whole, coconut and chocolate, coconut, almonds and chocolate.
Some of the bars are also available in the form of these bite-sized pieces. These come in bags. Notably, we have some crunchy rocks. We have Bits of Whisper. We have Curly Whirly Squirlies, and the least fun name, 12 Bites. These are more designed to be shared than obviously a classic chocolate bar would be. I think the idea is maybe you get a bag of these, take it into the cinema or something, watch a film, get a little snack. Next up we have brunch bars. These are Cadbury's take on cereal bars. We've got these brunch bars in 3 different flavors. We have a raisin one, a milk choc chip one, and a dark choc chip one. I do actually quite like these. These were like a occasional packed lunch inclusion when I was growing up. Basically, it's a cereal bar made mostly with oats, but then you get this base layer of chocolate, as well as, in this case, some choc chips as well. Yeah, they've got like a nice chewy texture. And then finally, it's time for what we'll call the best of the rest. These are the kind of miscellaneous Cadbury products, which don't really fit into any of the other categories, but are still worth talking about. Firstly, we have animal biscuits. These were, again, like a classic packed lunch staple when I was younger. You get a little biscuit, which on one side is kind of like decorated in the shape of an animal, and on the other side is just dipped in dairy milk chocolate. Gotta give a shout out to mini rolls. These are another like maybe grandma biscuit tin staple. These are actually like a cake basically, rather than a biscuit or a chocolate bar. It's a roll of chocolate sponge cake, which is then, like I say, rolled up with a little like layer of cream in the middle, and then the whole thing is dipped in milk chocolate as well. And then while we're talking about Cadbury cakes, we also have Cadbury cake bars. Kind of similar to mini rolls in that you have the chocolate sponge, it's all coated in chocolate as well, but you have that caramel layer along the top. Then we're on to a couple of fridge desserts. These are Cadbury's milk chocolate sticky puds. So these are great. I've had like these or an iteration of these many times in the past. Basically, they come in these little plastic pots, which are microwavable. And the typical way to eat these is that you maybe pierce the film on this, put the whole thing in the microwave for 30 seconds, a minute or so, take it out, flip it onto a plate, and it comes out. Cooking it kind of like steams the sponge when it's in there, and then there's like a chocolate sauce, as you can see on the packaging, which is kind of collected at this end, and then when you flip it, ends up kind of like drizzling down the side of the puds, and it's very nice. Like a fun, kind of like fancy feeling dessert that you can just have at home in 30 seconds. Pud, of course, is short for pudding, which is what we call dessert. And then we also have these dairy milk pots of joy. These are apparently a smooth and creamy dessert made with melted Cadbury milk chocolate. I've not had one of these before. I think they're like a yogurt, basically like a chocolate yogurt pot. I'm not sure what to make of this next one because it feels a little bit like America is infiltrating our Cadbury products. But this is Cadbury Dairy Milk Fruitier and Nuttier Orange Trail Mix. These, I believe, are new. I don't think Cadbury's been doing trail mix for a very long time. I also don't think trail mix is very popular in the UK in general, like it's just not that common. So in a bag of this, apparently you get sweetened cocoa, dairy milk orange buttons, raisins and sultanas, roasted almonds and hazelnuts.
Speaking of things meant to sound English, it's a York peppermint patty, all the way from the city of York. It is this, and it's just, instead of coconut, it is peppermint. Mr. Goodbar, chocolate and peanuts. This bar, the packaging, you can tell this is an old school bar. This bar is so old that its main selling point was like, we assure you there's peanuts in this bar. We're not lying to you, all right? Yes, you won't believe how packed with peanuts this bar is. Is this true to the good bar guarantee on the back? Possibly more. Wow, they over-delivered on the promise of peanuts. Fifth Avenue bar, I don't know what this is. Ugh. Whatchamacallit, let's go. Chocolate, peanut flavor crisps, and caramel. Definitely very peanut buttery. It's okay.
We have two options when it comes to beverages for Cadbury's in the UK. Here we have original Cadbury hot chocolate, and then we also have Highlights milk choc drink. I'm not massively sure what the difference is, but I think just judging from kind of a look on the packaging, Highlights might be designed as kind of like a diet option, just because it's described as an instant low-calorie milk chocolate flavor hot drink. Staying in the cupboard section of the Cadbury's aisle, now we're onto the chocolate spread. This is effectively kind of like a Nutella, but it doesn't have hazelnuts in it, so this is just like a pure chocolate spread. Now we're moving on to the bakery section of your supermarket. I got most of these from an Asda in London, so I do think the availability will vary slightly depending on where you are and which supermarket you're visiting, but I will say that most supermarkets will have a bakery section, and you'll probably see some Cadbury branding in there somewhere. Here's what I was able to find. We have 3 of these bagged goods from the Bakery at Asda range. Firstly, we have some Oaty Bakes, which are oat flapjacks containing milk chocolate. Next up, we have some Cadbury Dairy Milk Shorty Squares. Shorties like a melody in my square. Shorty Squares are a short cake packed with, again, some Dairy Milk chocolate chunks. Then we have some Cadbury Dairy Milk chocolate cookies. We're staying in the bakery aisle. Now we're on to Dairy Milk Caramel Donuts. Now I'm kind of intrigued by these. I love donuts. It's just very dry. And then we have a few more baked goods, namely the Dairy Milk Caramel Mini Cookies, Dairy Milk Cornflake Cluster Bites, and some Dairy Milk Brownie Bites. Then we're going to round things off with a few seasonal items. As I mentioned, unfortunately, we weren't able to get the Easter exclusives, which are pretty iconic, namely the cream egg and the mini egg, but because we're kind of in the Christmas Halloween period, I was able to get some of those exclusives instead. We'll start with the Halloween ones, which has just come and gone here in the UK. But we were able to find some mini bonfire logs, which are fun. I think these are like a mini roll, but instead of the classic kind of chocolate sponge, they've used a honeycomb sponge instead. And then another spooky seasonal exclusive are the pumpkin patch cakes. These are chocolate cakes with an orange colored cream filling. Then we have some Cadbury Christmas puds. These are Dairy Milk chocolate balls with a hazelnut truffle center, hazelnut pieces, and Rice Crisps. Again, it's that combination of like chocolate and nuts, just can't go wrong for me. And of course, we can't talk about seasonal exclusives without talking about advent calendars. We love our advent calendars over here. Cadbury's, of course, has to get involved, and they have a very simple but very effective chocolate advent calendar. This 110-gram bar of Cadbury Dairy Milk costs £1.35 at Tesco. Breaking that down, you're paying 1.22 pence per gram of chocolate.
In the US, our bar is 99 grams and it costs $2.79, which is 2.8 cents per gram. So per gram, it's a 91% increase in the US. Ooh, getting gouged, baby.
Here's everything in a bar of Dairy Milk chocolate in the UK. Milk, sugar, cocoa butter, cocoa mass, vegetable fats, palm and shea, emulsifiers, E442, ammonium phosphatides, E476, polyglycerol polyricinoleate, and flavorings.
Here's everything in a US Dairy Milk chocolate bar. We got sugar, milk, chocolate, cocoa butter, lactose, lecithin, PGPR, natural flavor, artificial flavor.
UK chocolate is often considered as superior by some, including myself, to US chocolate, and there are a few reasons for that. Firstly, the UK rules for its chocolate production from the Cocoa and Chocolate Products Regulations of 2003 set minimums for milk chocolate at 25% total fat, cocoa butter and milk fat, 5% milk fat, 20% dry cocoa solids, 2.5% dry non-fat cocoa solids, and 20% dry milk solids.
In the US, our FDA rules for our milk chocolate differ quite a bit. 10% chocolate liqueur, 12% milk solids, which can be either powder or condensed milk, at least 3.39% fat, and no more than 55% sugar.
Secondly, those of us on this side of the Atlantic can feel that American chocolate has a sour, almost vomity taste to it. That's all very well and good for American branded chocolate bars, but why doesn't US Cadbury taste like it does over here in the UK?
It starts with the Hershey Company. Back in the early 1900s, the company introduced cost-cutting measures, including a process to make its milk last longer in production. For this, they used a secret method called lipolysis? The details of Hershey's chocolate making process are a company secret, but part of the process involves butyric acid.
Butyric acid extends the shelf life of milk, but it does partially sour it. It's also found in Parmesan cheese, fermented foods like sauerkraut, and of course, vomit.
Hershey's became a powerful chocolate company in the US. So much so they successfully forced a ban on an import of Cadbury's chocolate into the US. In 1988, Hershey's acquired the US Cadbury license and has been producing it in the US with their own Americanized formula, putting them in similar looking Cadbury packages ever since.
Remember the price section from earlier? Well, it turns out that not only are Americans paying basically double the price for their chocolate as we are, but they're also getting a worse quality product. That's kind of sad. 100 grams of dairy milk chocolate in the UK contains the following: 534 calories, 30 grams of fat, of which 18 grams are saturated, 57 grams of carbs, of which 56 grams are sugars, and 56 milligrams of sodium.
Let's compare that to a 99-gram bar over here, seeing as there's only 1 gram difference. 500 calories, 57.5 grams of carbs, 27.5 grams of total fat, 17.5 grams of saturated fat, 55 grams of total sugars, 7.5 grams of protein, and 100 milligrams of sodium.
If we compare the 100 gram stats in the UK to the 99 gram stats in the US, you'll find that the UK actually has slightly more calories and fat, although it has less carbs and much less sodium. Give me, I was going to say a weekend, but I think realistically one hungover Sunday.